So, welcome to So What'd You Learn, the podcast where we learn from other people's mistakes so you don't have to. I am Alex.
I'm Zach.
I'm Dallas.
And our super special guest today is Elisa. Yay. Hello, friend.
Hello.
No, you're fine.
Oh, is the microphone backwards?
Pause for technical difficulties.
Edit.
Does one side pick it up better than the other?
There is a front and a back.
Really?
The one that says Audio Technica. Yeah, we found that out the hard way.
We recorded an entire episode with me speaking into the back of my microphone.
So did it sound kind of echoey and strange?
I was only picked
kinda
up
hear
on Zach's mic.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We're good now.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
So we just jettisoned it. We're like, this goes into the cabinet we don't speak of.
The horror of...
I think there's a hole in my cup.
Is it leaking out the
I
bottom?
swear it looked more full a second ago.
Well, these also aren't very spill proof. They're kind of top heavy and
Dumb.
yeah.
They look, you look like you
Your
got
shot
them at a
glasses are
store.
dumb and you should feel bad.
What are we drinking, Alex?
We are sampling on our delicate refined palates a Icelandic birch liqueur called Birkir, and it's awesome.
Birkir.
It comes with a little stick in the bottle.
I was going to say, yeah.
The stick is cute. It's a good touch.
And the only reason we're using these weird hipster Nordic shot glasses is because I only have 2 cups.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Bachelor
Dallas-
life.
yeah, Dallas is the type of person that has one of everything, but not in like, I have one of everything. It's like one plate, one fork, one spoon.
I do have glasses. I have 4 glasses, but they're too big for alcohol.
The shoe really doesn't work out for you, man. You got to buy the other shoe.
Yeah.
Other shoe.
1 guitar string.
But that G chord sounds great.
Yeah. Man, the G one always buzzes too. Those fuckers. Anyway,
So we're gonna
yeah.
test
We're
out
gonna
this
try this,
this fancy Icelandic liqueur right on the pod for you.
Let's see what it does.
don't.
I already tasted it and I found it to be quite twiggy.
Yes.
It does kind of taste like a little bit like aftershave, but it's good.
Which is my
It's
favorite flavor of alcohol.
Kind of like I
alcohol in it.
took a stick
Uh-huh.
and then I soaked it in shaving cream for like a day,
Like a
and
fresh
then I
snap.
just
Suck it
Tastes
down like a
okay.
corn dog.
yeah.
No, it's not bad.
Well, I'm a fan, so fuck y'all.
I didn't say it was bad.
I wonder if genetically you're the most Icelandic of all of us. Is that a possibility?
I don't know. I don't
There's
think
not
so.
a lot of folks who are Icelandic.
I'm pretty fucking white.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like Irish, German, Spanish, Dutch, English, and Welsh.
Well, that is your cousin Bjork you forgot about, too.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. She's like, how is your skin? I'm like, it's fine. She's like, can I wear it? I'm like, no, thank you, Bjork.
That's why cousin Bjork doesn't come over for Thanksgiving.
My favorite video of Bjork is her dissecting the back of a television and talking about, yes, she's like, as you look at this television, it looks like a little city. I just imagined
Why
the
are we not
little,
watching this
little,
right now?
little elves in this little city. I did not watch television for a long time because a poet told me that it is giving you all these images. Each tiny image is too much for your brain. So I did not watch television. But then when someone explained it to me, I was much more receptive. And there's so many good programs, which is why don't listen to poets. They will lie to you.
All right, our special guest Bjork.
That's pretty much the entire video. It is the
pretty great.
most wonderful thing.
That actually wasn't a bad Bjork either. That was actually pretty good.
I
Alex.
may
Wait,
have
is that a
watched that
true-
video several times.
That's a real video.
Yes, it's on
True
YouTube.
statements.
True statement. Those are as direct quotes as I
Poets
can
will lie
muster.
to you.
Poets, yeah, do not listen
Can
to
I get a
poets. They
t-shirt
will lie
that
to
says
you.
will lie to
No, or
you?
don't listen to artists. Something. I don't know.
I admire artists, and I admire that she feels that way about a television because on my way here before I accidentally ran into an old lady. It was her car.
Burying the lead.
It was her car. And if
While
I knew she
walking?
was going to be as slow as she was, I should have just kept driving. But I didn't. I was a good person.
I didn't murder the old
I didn't.
woman.
No. And I felt really bad for her because she said that the last time somebody hit her, she was a pedestrian. In a grocery store parking lot, and they drove away. And so I have insurance. It's all good. But I was thinking if I get here early enough, I was going to sit and watch, speaking of destructive things, Love Island Australia on my
Wow.
on my phone
Is
before.
that a reality show?
Yeah, it really
Oh my
is.
God.
Yeah,
That sounds amazing.
Sadly, I do know of it as well.
Yeah.
Wait, is this the one where they just put a bunch of hot people on an island and be like, okay,
Yep.
bicker?
They
Sure
call
do.
it coupling up. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I wonder if they have to have like a panel of screening before they go in to make sure their juices are not going to leave lasting effects on their.
Probably.
Well, they just come in like every 24 hours with a big hose of Febreze and just come into the house, do it all done.
I remember when I was a kid and I was probably 8 or 10 and my buddy was spending the night and he was sleeping in the den, which is like, you know, where the fold out bed is and shit and computers and stuff. And
Wood
as a
paneling,
joke,
you get it.
I took
I
the
was totally
Febreze
doing wood
bottle
paneling.
and I duct taped the trigger down and then I threw it in there and then just shut the door. And then he woke up coughing. I probably could have killed him, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
he,
So,
he stank for like into the morning.
I
I'm
hate
sure his
Febreze
mother
so
was
much.
grateful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever watch Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt where they have the
Yes.
the Febreze covered up? It's fine. As I understand, you have a background in things you might want to talk about. I have no idea what you prepared to bring.
You know
I'm
what's
just kind
so
of
funny? I
peddling.
was like, well, I don't even know what the hell we're going to talk about.
that segue brought to you by Segway.
okay.
When you need a segue,
Segway.
I just learned that Segway is spelled Segue, and I always thought I always read it as seg. and when I realized that it was the word Segway, and that's how it's
Actually spelled,
oh my God,
Yeah.
not SEGWAY.
right.
And that's why they went out of business.
It's
Did they?
totally.
I don't know. They're not successful.
And
I'll tell you
the
that.
scooters are gonna take
They're
them.
only left for mall cops now.
Scooting.
Isn't it amazing how how common the electric scooters are these days?
Yeah.
You just burped directly into the microphone. Dallas.
The classiest podcast on the internet.
So that was
Modular.
fucking rotten. Brought to you by Dallas.
I'm sorry.
Whatever, you edit
I had a
it.
slow reaction time today. It's too late to edit it now because then I'd have to edit out all this talking.
Let's make more work for Dallas.
So I tried to cluster my coughing around your burp so that you would make one easy snip.
There
So
we
you
go.
have to consider it guest. Yeah. So you have a background in something you would be liking to talk about.
If
apparently.
those are stories you want to tell.
Sure.
You know, I don't know
Well,
what
I don't-
you have in your bag
you know-
of tricks, Felix.
I used to be a newspaper reporter.
Right.
So I'm a writer.
Yeah,
So
you're
by
right.
trade. So guys, turns out I do something professionally, and
Neat.
it's not just bartending, because that's the origin of our nexus.
Yes, that's how
Right,
we all
yes.
met.
It is. It is.
She pours liquor in our faces.
Pretty
yes,
much.
exactly. I enable, and but
Enabling you.
yep, totally professional enabler. But yeah, I was a newspaper reporter for many years, and criminal justice was the focus of my writing, and
Where were you a reporter at? Was it here in Washington?
it
Or?
was. So I only reported here in Washington, but the stories that I did oftentimes were picked up on the AP Wire and carried nationwide. I worked for the Daily World in Aberdeen,
Oh, cool.
the Daily News in Longview, the Columbian in Vancouver, Washington, and and you don't care where I interned at, but it was at the Bellingham Herald. So
Nice.
clearly very large,
Yes.
large scale productions.
Yeah,
Everybody,
yeah.
tip of the tongue.
You're
Everybody
a
knows
regular
them.
metropolitan reporter.
That's me. I'm Lisa Cuddy, bringing it to you live. So I remember when I first started out the paper in Aberdeen, I went to these city council meetings that you'd have to go to as a
Oh,
newbie
they're
reporter.
horribly boring.
Oh my God. And
I mean, local government is important, but also they're horribly boring.
they're horribly boring.
Yeah,
and,
I'd
you know,
like to raise an issue with the state of the local park by my house. There's just too many squirrels there, and they drive my cat just up the who's and what's it, you know.
Yeah.
So if we could do something about these squirrels.
yeah, and there would be just nutty people who'd come in every week with their squirrel complaints, you know.
Yeah.
But
So you lived Parks and Rec for a
I
brief period
did.
of
I
time.
did. But then I was young, you know, I was fresh out of college and I was young and nubile. And
Nimble and quick.
and there was this
word is
reporter
funny to
for
me.
the radio station who was really cute. And so he and I actually dated for a while. And so it was like competitors dating. And
Ooh, salacious.
it was very salacious, and I'll never forget being so pissed off because I lived in this house in Aberdeen that overlooked. It was on a hill and it overlooked everything. But I was spending the night at his just shitball fucking apartment
Shitty
in
dude
Montesano
apartment.
on the night that the fucking high school
Montesano.
got torched and burned down by arsonists.
Holy shit.
Yo, jeez.
People get bored out there in Aberdeen. Man. It's a dangerous place.
Look at Kurt Cobain. Look how
I
he
know.
ended up.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Well, he used his boredom for rock and roll.
And then he shot himself.
We'll take this offline.
I just want a locket of his pubic hair like Courtney.
Oh God.
Keep the memories close.
I heard she fed it to Francis.
I heard Francis flosses with it.
Okay, you got me there.
And that's all I know about Aberdeen.
Oh my
That was
word.
So you're staying in his shithole apartment. So the high school that burned down was across the street?
From my house.
Oh, from your house.
And I totally missed it because I was at his shitty apartment 20 minutes away. Now, the strange thing. So, anyway, this guy, whatever. Missed the story. I mean, I didn't miss the story because eventually I shagged my ass over there and covered it. But I was just pissed at myself for missing it because I was over at his shithole apartment. But I went on to date a county prosecutor. And when I went back to his apartment, it turned out
He was the arsonist.
he had the same apartment in Montesano as my radio station boyfriend.
What?
Wait, the
My
same,
radio station
the
boyfriend. It
same
was,
unit?
it was the
Shitty
same
apartment.
unit.
What the fuck?
I was like, oh my God, I have a poop story. I remember.
I love a good
Again,
poop story.
burying the lead.
And I'm so sorry that I sent you a poop story earlier, and I don't know if you read it, but it's quite
I
funny.
didn't have
but-
time.
Oh,
I wanted
perfect.
to.
You didn't have time to. Okay. It just- but I remember that was the first time that I had been in somebody's bathroom and had to go to the bathroom, and then it didn't flush, and I'm like,
Oh, no.
what the
That
fuck
is
do
very
you do?
unpleasant
Oh my
situation.
God.
Well, you take it out with your hands. You
That's-
mush it up and shove it down the shower drain like
You
a
ask them if they have a
psychopath.
spoon they don't like.
I just
poop
ran
knife.
out and grabbed a Ziploc bag and just used it as a little glove and tucked it in there. And then I put it
Clever.
inside my shirt, ran outside and threw it away.
Oh my god.
Wow.
So anyway, when I
mean-
walked into this apartment of this prosecutor's,
Flashbacks. You're just like,
I
oh,
was like,
God.
oh my God,
You
I
still saw
have
the Ziploc bag.
fished a
in the
turd
tree
out of the
outside.
toilet from this very place.
Strange.
Now, was the apartment a shithole or just the way he kept it?
No, it wasn't even really a shithole apartment. It was just like, I mean, picture an apartment built in the 70s in Grays Harbor. It's just a kind of a desolate place where the wallpaper has like the peas where it says like has peas and then it has corn and it has all these different, and it has like the name of
harvest
it.
theme.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I love that shit. I'm sorry.
No, but it was and it was like everything was as cheap as it could be, like
Particle board.
particle board, hollow core doors. I mean,
Oh, okay. I know which place you're talking
yeah,
about now.
yeah. And
I lived in White Center for 4 years, and yeah, that was my apartment for a long time.
Yeah.
Just the shittiest everything.
yeah, were you there when there was a sign in White Center that said not very white, or it said White Center, not very white, not very center?
Yes, I love that sign. I'm sad they took it down.
Yeah,
Because it
yeah.
perfectly describes White Center.
Last
That
time I
way.
drove through White Center, there was just a man walking down the street towards oncoming traffic with a bandana on over his face and head, and I just like stopped my car and I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. Just walk by, but like I had to come to a full stop without any other crosswalks or anything for like 10 seconds. So I was like, what the fuck is this place?
I used to live on 17th, and
Oh, so right in the heart of White Center.
yeah, I lived on 17th for about 3 years, and then I lived on 16th for another 3 years.
Okay.
And when I was on 17th, I remember waking up one morning. It was one of those tall duplexes that they've been building, cramming as much.
Was it the
Yeah.
Coronado?
It was not, but it was
Oh, I almost lived there when I first moved here.
really, yeah, no, there is some
And
interesting
then I got
places.
told there was a murder there like a week before I
And you're like,
toured.
cool.
It's the opening.
So I'm currently
Excellent
living
timing.
there.
Yeah, but there was one morning where my bedroom was on the 3rd floor, and I heard this sound, and I looked out the window, and it would, look down on the street, and there was this guy in a wheelchair with one leg pushing himself backwards while drinking a 40
Love it.
and coughing as if he had tuberculosis.
Awesome.
And
Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan, where did you go, Lieutenant
You
Dan?
got an extra leg, Lieutenant.
And it was kind of like I thought of it as a city rooster. You have roosters out in the country, but then in the city you just have more microphone stuff. But in the city you just have one-legged wheelchair-bound alcoholics with
TB.
emphysema.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So yeah, for any not Seattle area listeners, Google White Center.
It ain't
fun.
West Seattle, that's for sure.
Do they have a
Shit
new-
ain't.
Do they have a news website like Beerian does?
Yeah, they had the White Center
right.
blog. Yeah.
It's called Duck.
But bum.
I texted Jacob. I drove through White Center for some reason the other night, and I texted our friend Jacob, and I said, "It's been a long time since I locked the doors while I was in the car." 'Cause I just drove through White Center.
Why are we? You know,
had
I
an
really
Office
love
Space
White
moment.
Center, though.
Me
I
too. They have cool
That's
stuff.
cool, and there's a lot of great restaurants. I actually
Yeah.
really like White Center.
I do too. I'm just. I don't know why we're ripping. It's a rippable area
It's
here.
a very rippable area.
Well, it used to be
like I said, Google
really
it.
bad.
Yeah. For more local color, I'll notice that Alturas, which used to be the Heights at Beerian, which used to be Vintage Park, which used to be Beerian Gardens, is now under.
It used to be. Seahurst Manor.
Sears Manor, yes.
yeah.
And it's changed again. I don't remember what it is, but I'm just like, wow. Alturas lasted 5 years. Basically, they try to rebrand the apartment complex every number of years to kind of escape its reputation.
Oh, so when you try and Google it, and it was like, oh, but I've never heard of this place. No, they have one review. It's okay. Must be fine. In reality, their old name has like 1 stars all across the board.
Yeah.
Well, those 2 girls that were killed a couple of years ago, one of them was in my daughter's math class.
Holy shit.
Sheesh.
Yeah, and she was 14, 13.
Yeah. So does she live in that complex?
The girl who died?
Yeah.
She did. Yeah, but there's a lot of gang activity, you know, just in
Yeah.
general. Everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But that complex has a long
Specifically.
history of being shitty.
Yeah.
Like apparently all of their power conduits like went through one place. So at some point there was a I think people who were living in the complex decided they were going to rob other people in the complex.
Like you do.
Like you do. And so they just went to the power conduits and cut certain apartments' power, because you have like basically hop the fence, cut whatever conduit you want, and then break into those apartments when the power's out.
That's terrifying. That's like the start of the purge.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And they just went back, turned the power back on, and we're just like, cool, free shit.
Never
Wait,
more.
so
Jesus.
did they wait for somebody to leave their apartment and be like, that guy lives alone and now he's gone? So
And from what I imagine, yeah. But
I'm sure they cased it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, for anybody else that doesn't know, if you need to put more of a picture of White Center, it's where Ted Bundy got one of his victims in White Center. Mm-hmm. So that
One of
just
his-
puts the whole picture together.
one of his first ones.
Yeah.
You know, are you guys familiar with Anne Rule? She wrote Stranger Beside Me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that
fun
that
fact.
It's
story.
fantastic, yeah.
Growing up, Anne Rule was my neighbor.
No shit.
Really?
No fucking shit.
That's wild.
And she was a very private person.
I can imagine.
And when I was in community college, I was a speaker at graduation, and she was too. She was a past graduate from Highland Community College. Only the best for me. You guys have some real classy guests. So I remember I met her for the first time, even though she'd been my neighbor for, 15 years.
Yeah, it didn't come out much.
And I said, "Oh, Anne, I'm your neighbor. This is where I live." And she said, "Don't ever tell anyone where I live." And I said, "I won't."
I sure won't. Cryptic.
Yeah.
Yep. She had a pack of,
Hyenas?
kind of. They were German shepherds.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
no.
patrolled her area. She lived right down on the beach. I did not live on the beach. Yeah.
Who knew there were so many sordid little stories in our little burg?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, thick, ripe with them.
Yeah. I just love how you're just like, yeah, I'm your neighbor. Instead of being like, oh, yeah, it's great. You've been a great neighbor so far. Just do me a favor and keep it a little hush-hush. Instead of like, hey, I'm your neighbor. Don't fucking tell anyone.
If you ever tell anyone.
My favorite thing to do with people who are new to the area, or to drive around and show them different places where, like, the Green River Killer dumped a body.
Oh, yeah.
That's fun. Yeah. I did that with my mom. She's a big into true crime. So, yeah, she loved it.
Oh, right on. That's awesome.
My building is adjacent to the Green River. It's the end of the Green River, but
Yeah,
it's not.
It's still there.
It's still there. It's a river. I dated a girl a while back that went to Green River is it community college
Yeah,
or
there's a
college
community
or
college there.
whatever
But
whatever it
did
is.
they drop
They do a-
community? They just now it's Green
I
River
think they-
College.
yeah, I think
Seattle
they
That's
dropped
a new
college.
thing.
Well, because most of the students
Rebranding.
there are not from America, so they're from like Turkey and whatever, the UK and stuff. And I dated a girl that went there, and one morning I was like, "Hey, how was your night?" or whatever. And she woke up and texted me back, and she's like, "Oh, it was so cool. last night, me and my friends took shrooms, and then we went into the woods behind the school and just walked around. And I was like, that's literally how tens of girls like you have gotten murdered
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
In
There.
the same woods there.
It's not a great track record.
No, it's not.
Yeah. I remember when I was a newspaper reporter, when Gary Ridgway was first arrested, he was linked by DNA to 4 people. And one of the people he was linked to was a woman who lived in Kelso. I'm full of lies. Lived in Hoquiam. And I lived in Aberdeen. And Aberdeen and Hoquiam, I mean, obviously, are right next to each other.
Of course.
Never heard of this.
So
Everyone knows that.
right. So when the Green River Killer was arrested, I got to break this cool story and do this whole like fleshed out feature about, you know, his first 4 victims, and got to really get into the one of
that's
them.
really
That
cool.
was kind of interesting. Yeah. Oh, but what I was going to say is the crime scene photos and some of the information that I learned while doing, you know, in the coming months and years that I worked on various and sundry Green River Killer things were incredibly troubling.
I
Yeah.
can imagine.
Yeah.
That's the thing we all sometimes forget about being all fans of true crime. Is
Yeah,
that,
and then you
oh,
go-
there's a victim here. This was
You go
real.
look up photos, and it's just like, why
Well,
did I do
yeah.
that?
Remember.
It's beyond it's not just like hitting somebody in a crosswalk and keep going. It's more, I mean, there's like,
I mean, as you do, but
well, as I alluded to earlier.
When you almost ran over Hans Moleman, yes.
That's right. But yeah, no, crazy stuff out there, man. The world is a crazy place.
No, so are there some other big stories you covered? Because you would have been reporting around that would be the 2000s or
It was.
2000s?
I was. Yep. There was a story that I did about a woman who she was beat to shit by her boyfriend and left in a pile of cow manure in a dairy barn in Rochester.
God, I hate
And he
people.
left her for dead. And this was after he poured bleach all over her clothes and set them on fire.
Okay.
But she was
was
alive.
she wearing
and
the
she-
clothes?
I
no,
wanna
thank God.
imagine
Okay.
Thank God.
so,
Is
yeah.
bleach flammable?
It's not, but he went through her house and he destroyed it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then was like
Just ruined everything.
ruined everything.
Literally. Yeah. Like a shitty Tasmanian devil.
Yeah. And so he leaves this poor woman for dead in this dairy barn, and she manages to call 911 because she's still alive. And they piece her back together. She's in recovery for eons. She's never quite the same. But it was around the time that DNA technology in the state of Washington took all over the place, took
Yeah.
a big leap forward, where they were able to take DNA samples that had been stored for prolonged periods of time, and they were able to actually match them to people. And that technology was new at that time. And
Yeah.
so it was right about the time they started the crime base. The Washington State Patrol, you know, oversees the crime lab in the state of Washington. And so now it's mandatory that if you are convicted of a felony, that you have to submit a DNA sample.
Right, yeah,
So
you
this
get
was the
big
early
mouth
days.
swab and-
Yeah, exactly. This was
I
the
did
early
not
days
know
of
that.
that.
Yes.
And when she named this fellow, his name's David Gerard, indicated him as the perpetrator, he eventually was apprehended and was then linked to 2 cold cases of 2 prostitutes who were found separately out in the woods. And it's interesting because this fellow named Lane Yeomans, he's was the Grays Harbor County chief homicide detective.
I think I've seen that guy. I think he does some of the crime shows like Unsolved Mysteries or Forensic Files. I think I've recognized that name.
Well, I know that, and I don't have cable, so I haven't seen it, but I know that the Discovery ID called me a few years ago.
Oh, really?
There was a guy who wrote a book
when
about
I had
this.
cable, I loved Discovery ID.
Oh, well, so I got a call from the Discovery ID channel several years ago, and they were starting up a new series based on the story that I'd written, because apparently the story had been turned into a book, and thank God the author had quoted me accurately throughout, and the source throughout.
Oh, that's amazing.
So they were able to get a hold of the newspaper, who got a hold of my editor, who got a hold of me, and at that time I was, you know, selling soap at Lush because that's
out of a suitcase.
out of a out of a shoecase. Anyway, and so so that got turned into it's called Murder Book. It's a whole series on Discovery ID,
Okay.
and
I do vaguely remember that. Yeah.
and that one's called and I still haven't seen it, but I know the episode is called End of the Road.
Okay.
And then Lane Yeomans,
Such an interesting name. It's like
isn't
That's
it?
why it stands out. That's why I remember it.
Lane Yeoman.
He was this guy. He had this bald head, and you know, I feel like it wasn't like nowadays. It's really cool to advocate for everybody. Not that it's not cool. It's a human fucking right. But what
I
I'm
love how you
saying
put
is,
like the air quotes and then
Yeah.
like mouthed lib cuck snowflake.
no. But I just thought it was really cool because here was a dude in the middle of fucking Grays Harbor County, okay, just yokel to death, who spent all of his time trying to find justice for underrepresented people who had been
Yeah,
Like sex
assaulted,
workers,
killed.
people
Yeah,
of color.
I was very touched.
The
And so,
quote unquote less dead, as they're called.
well, and he had taken it upon himself for 20 years. He'd been, and this is also kind of creepy. I'm sorry, Lane, for saying it, but he did save and refrigerate DNA for 20 years, hoping that one day the technology would get there.
I mean, I think that just shows dedication and his. I don't think that's very creepy. I mean, I guess in a sense, in a
It's
more.
not like he took it out and smelled it.
Exactly.
And put it back.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe it was like samples of things, not like a hand here, a finger there.
We're gonna solve this one, boys. Just
3
hold on to
teeth in a
block
bag. Like
I gotta chew off this severed hand's fingernail and then
But he
put
was-
it.
I left my
Such a-
Leatherman at home.
Such a kind and respectful man. And he ended up being the Grays Harbor County coroner, actually, after all that was done.
Yes.
That story, the original story, then got spun off to Oxygen. So Oxygen started.
Of course, the Scare Women Network.
Yeah, the Scare Women Network. Lane Yeomans, they started a whole thing on coroners and medical examiners, and so Lane Yeomans was one of the people that they featured on that
Oh,
one
that's
too.
neat. What was the story that you did that was then turned into a book, into several miniseries?
That one was the it was called To Catch a Killer, the one that I wrote, but it was turned into the show on Discovery ID, which was called Murder Book.
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
And I haven't seen it because I don't have cable. And it was
Yeah.
years ago. It was probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 years ago. Time flies when you're middle aged.
Yeah, sure. That's about when I dropped cable was about 3 years ago. So yeah, that would probably coincide.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's but honestly, it actually exhausts me even thinking about it. God, that must have been such hard work back in the day. I'm like, oh my
did I do
God,
that?
now it's all I could do to get up and shower, you know?
There's a word for that. Depression.
Right?
Physical fatigue.
Wine.
And I am a copywriter, so I incorporate, as you know, many terrible jokes. So
perfect.
if I work for hardware stores, so if
You
we're
do well on
selling
this podcast.
tarps, I'm like, bring your own shovel and lime, like as a snipe.
Plastic sheeting, half price.
Yeah, so I
No
try
questions asked.
yeah, no questions asked. I try to
No, it's
incorporate some witticisms and
Yeah.
You got to keep it light. You got to keep people on their toes.
yeah.
Maybe you don't. I don't know.
OSHA says so.
Fucking OSHA.
But yeah, so you're a copywriter and you bartend on the side.
I do. I'm pretty sure, and I have no problem saying this because who fucking is my
Listening, yeah. no
like the
one's
people I
listening.
work for are ever gonna fucking hear this. Yeah, the small town hardware store I work for was engulfed by purchased by a very large corporation,
Oh.
and the creative team that I work for
Same.
works in another city, and there's only 2 of us, another fellow and I, left from the original team, that because I worked for the hardware store prior to it being absorbed like menstrual flow by this fucking tampon
Evocative.
shit show of a
This is
company.
an
Anyway,
evocative metaphor.
so just to make sure I'm covered in case I lose my job, I thought, what is something that everybody always needs? And I thought, hand jobs, but I've got rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, there's a prostitution thing.
tired.
My teeth don't
Get
come
it.
out. I wouldn't give good blowjobs. So I thought, well, bartending is the other one. I mean, I thought of being a doula, but that's kind of messy.
Yeah.
Although I have encapsulated my friend's placentas. True story.
What?
Yeah, some people save them. Some people even cook them and have their friends over. It's supposed to be a big thing.
Oh, got it. I forgot the baby wasn't still in there.
Yeah, we
I
don't.
don't know what
we
it
don't
is.
even
It
have
was
to
an-
talk about it. It's,
Okay.
it's yeah.
There was a phase, I went through a brief phase with me and my roommate where we would try to work the word placenta into various movie titles, like fried
Florida-
green placenta, Placenta of a woman.
Lord of the Placenta.
I like that.
Nothing but placenta.
Dirty placenta instead of dirty dancing. That's not even funny because that didn't even make sense.
Placenta dancing.
Placenta. There we go. That's better.
Lords of
Placenta
Placenta
woman.
Town.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Placenta and sensibility.
Dazed and placenta.
9.5 placentas.
Is this a new placenta podcast?
Welcome back to Placenta Cast.
Oh no.
For all your needs that we are not equipped to answer.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
Well,
Oh, it's afterbirth, that's for sure.
And that is the first and last episode.
Gross. Oh my god.
It's afterbirth. Ugh.
Sometimes I'll run into people, not run into them, but like, because I work customer service, I'll have visibly pregnant customers. And I am never like, oh, what do you do? Because one, it's bad to assume. Two, I don't actually care.
Yep. Most importantly, I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't give a shit. But the one thing I'll say
3,
is...
can I have the placenta?
No, it's for a podcast. You don't understand.
No, don't go away.
Where are you going?
Please, put the phone down. Don't down on them. No, but I asked them, I was like, you know, when someone is obviously pregnant, and it's safe enough to assume, I will ask them if I can live vicariously through them. I usually start with like, have people started touching you without your permission yet? Which is a good non-question.
Yeah.
And if they're just like, what are you talking about? I'm just like, I mean, I just crave personal space. So, you know, you can like pivot off of it really easily.
Yeah, no, you got to be quick on your feet.
Yeah. Unlike a
My
pregnant
general
woman, but
thought is to never assume a woman's pregnant until she's crowning.
Until I see a baby coming out of that vagina, I will not assume anything.
The power of lying to yourself exists.
yes.
I don't know what I was watching. Was it I Survived? It was on the channel. What'd you say
Discovery
earlier?
Channel? Or
Oxygen?
Investigation
Something.
Discovery.
Scaring
But-
Women channel.
This
The Scared Women Channel, yes.
this poor tiny 15-year-old girl got pregnant and she hid it from her family the whole time, and she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, had the kid in the toilet,
Yep.
and then here we go. That's it. Like, parents didn't know until it was actually in real
That
life.
actually
I will
happens.
say that having
No.
a child does feel like going poop. 100%.
There you go. I went to elementary and middle school. This is actually a very sad story. Like I said, this does happen. She was at a Christian college on a volleyball scholarship. She got pregnant. Didn't tell anyone about it. Somehow hid it from everyone and still played on the volleyball team. Because if she got pregnant, she would lose her scholarship. She would have to leave college. Mm-hmm. So she hid it for 9 months, had the baby in her apartment and in the bathtub, and killed it, unfortunately.
Oh my Christ.
Yeah. I
Wait,
went,
so then what happened?
she went to jail.
Spike set.
Oh,
No, she
Yeah.
she went to jail because she couldn't hide it anymore.
Yeah.
jeez.
I am.
Wow.
But to circle back on the pregnant women, I usually will ask them if people have touched them without their permission, because people love to go up to pregnant women and just touch their bellies without even
Can
asking.
I feel the baby?
They don't even ask.
Of course
They're just
not.
like, oh, when do you do? And they're like, get your fucking hand off me. But I'm like, do me a favor, because they're like, oh yeah, people have touched me. I'm like, do me a favor, and then come tell me about it later. But the next time someone does that, I want you to just stare them dead in the face and say, it's a tumor. And see how quickly they pull their hand away, and then come tell me so I can live vicariously through you, because I can't get pregnant.
Yes.
I loved that the person's freaked out and was like, it's not contagious, right?
It is.
It is.
So what? So you said you were a reporter for 10 years. Is this the kind of?
For 10 years? Oh, no. Oh, my God. I wish. No, I was a professional reporter for like maybe 4. I accidentally got, I won a big award, moved to a new town.
Yeah.
And that first night I was there, I was reading Hunter S. Thompson's The Rum Diary.
Yeah.
And I wanted a rum and Coke, and I drove to the first bar I saw, and it was in Longview. And drinking my rum and Coke, reading the Rum Diary. And here's this guy who comes up to me. He has all of his teeth. And he had a really cool Grateful Dead tie-dye shirt on and these cut-off corduroys and
Sure.
Jesus shoes.
that's awesome.
So I was pregnant 3 months later. And then I just ended up staying home for 6 years after that. So, and by the time I went back to work, newspapers were dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, not 10 years. I mean, if you count all my
I got 10
college
years from
time,
somewhere. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
we're looking at a solid 7, 8.
Writing on the school paper and whatnot.
Oh, then I'm at 10.
Oh, there
Oh
you
yeah, if we go back to high school, fuck yeah, 10 years, decade
Ready.
of excellence.
go. Hell yeah.
No, after I was knocked up and had babies, I still did copy editing for newspapers. It was just really boring. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's slowed to be a semi-exciting time just because there was a lot changing in the area around that time when you were reporting. So that had to be
Yeah.
kind of interesting to kind of see.
It was actually super traumatic. I have PTSD. I saw some really fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really nice now, I don't think I could go back to doing that work, but when I was young and made of rubber, it was a lot easier.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
What's the word?
Emotional debris.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, we talked about that on my mom's episode about
Yeah.
because she was in the healthcare field
Yes.
for 30 years.
30 plus years.
30
yeah.
plus years. About how you deal with this fucked up situation, people are dying, and then that situation's over. Either they die or they're discharged, and then people assume that you go back down to baseline.
There's no
But
resolution.
There's
Yeah.
no resolution. There it is not current practice to bring everyone into a group and be like, okay, let's talk about what happened. Let's
There's no
let's
time.
debrief.
There's-
Let's decompress. There's
Nobody
none of
huddles
that.
up.
No one huddles up. So then you don't go back down to baseline. You just keep over the years building this giant pile of broken feelings, underneath everything until it's too much.
Yeah, healthcare workers have it super intense. I was just talking to a guy the other night who's a cardiac nurse, and he's on the code team, and I'm
That's
thinking, wow. And he said, and I want you guys to know that he's very good at what he does, but he's like, I wish I could respond to codes during my entire shift.
Code team? What do you mean?
So when somebody stops breathing and their heart stops, it's called a code. And when when somebody codes, they call the code team who come in and do the CPR and will use whatever sort of resuscitative methods are needed to
So they
damn
just,
it, don't die.
Yeah.
They just
Like
they
the
just
TV
kind of
moment.
stay on
Yeah.
Code
call
blue, code
inside
blue.
until something really bad happens, and then they go in.
Well, he's a cardiac nurse anyway, and so he does that.
It usually means that they get pulled from whatever other thing it is that they're
Got it.
doing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So
you know.
they're people who are qualified all around the hospital. So it could be in the NICU, it could be in the ER. They go to wherever they're needed and they go
The
do their
utility
thing.
player of the hospital, essentially.
They are. They really are. They're just breathing life back into folks. No big deal.
Literally.
Yeah. And so yeah, like on a daily basis, that's his 9 to 5.
Wow.
And I get
Ugh.
frustrated because I can't reach the top shelf at the bar.
Right?
Boy, puts it into perspective.
Yeah, sure
We
does.
need to get one of those little grabby arms.
Oh my god, that'd be
Oh my God.
adorable.
You'd be unstoppable.
I almost brought one in, and
don't think it would
we
work
have a whole box of them at work, and they've got these like 2 little suction cups, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
if you
fuck
get the
yeah.
legit ones, you can't get
Oh.
the crappy ones from the dollar store. But if
Yeah.
you get the legit metal ones,
I have a legit metal one, and it's like a choice of colors. It's like cranberry,
ooh,
steel gray. There's black and navy.
I think cranberry would fit in nicely.
I
with
was
the
thinking
decor.
cranberry as well. I was.
fit in with the wood.
Was
Yeah.
yeah. Atmosphere.
I mean, if you just have to write off 4, 5 cases of liquor bottles that you inevitably drop and break, but it's no big deal.
Whoops.
I haven't broken
convenience.
a bottle yet, but it's only been a couple months.
But I mean, you haven't been using the grabby.
I was a bar back for 2 weeks and I broke 3 glasses.
Oh yeah, that's
I still have a scar.
yeah. I'm terrified that I'm going to reach into a
garbage
dropped-
can and scratch.
yeah.
I dropped a wine glass and I tried to pick up the stem. And
Wrong.
the stem literally just went right into the side of my finger.
Ouch.
And for 6 years, my fingers still itch because there were tiny micro glass in it.
The body has an interesting way of working things out, though,
Yeah.
which is my favorite. I love it when you get some weird sliver in your foot or glass in your finger. I used to be a stagehand at a performing arts center, and the ropes were made of hemp, and little pieces would break off, and you'd get the palms of my
slivers.
hands,
All
and then
those
they get
tiny
kind of
little-
infected, but then they just
Yeah.
eject. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, but for 6 years, that hole in my hand itched.
Yeah.
Until it came out.
Yeah, it just stopped 2 years ago. And
Did it come out?
No, there was I was told by the doctor it was basically micro pieces of glass just working its way up through my skin.
Fascinating.
I had a tooth pulled out. Wow, words. And they put a screw in where the teeth used to be, so they can put the fake tooth back on it. And a little side note was when he was screwing it into my skull, he put his hand on the back of my head to keep it still.
Leverage.
I mean,
Yeah.
Little
But
twerk.
it finally, it's finally like 90% healed up.
he's stuck a
And-
fucking DeWalt in here.
Yeah, and when I was at work, I was like, Jacob, you want to see something cool? He's like, yeah. I was like, I haven't taken a picture of it yet, but just look at my mouth. And he's like, yeah, there's fucking screw in your mouth, dude. I was like, what does it look like? Because I can't see it.
Oh, they went with a Phillips head. Interesting choice.
There's just one little line. It's like a little. Yeah. I heard in passing that you saw a ghost.
Yeah, I've seen many a ghost, but
All right,
probably-
chronological order or alphabetical, your choice.
Finish it.
Let's go chronological.
Okay.
Yeah. So back when I was I almost said a farmhand, a stagehand.
That would have been interesting.
It's been a long time since I milked a cat. I'll tell you that.
Spent
the
many a spring birthing ghost cows.
On the old haunted farm.
Yeah.
My first job, I made $4.10 an hour, and I was a stagehand at the Performing Arts Center in Burien.
Oh, the Pack? You worked at the Pack?
I worked at the Pack when it first opened.
Fuck that. My roommate works at the Pack.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I first started working there, there was this guy named Dave who was the boss man. Really nice dude. And so the Pack is a very large auditorium. It has a stage area.
It seats $2,000? $2,000.
Yeah.
No, or is it
2,000.
Yeah, I was-
800?
Yeah, right about there.
It's a fairly-
yeah,
it's a fairly large theater.
It's a sizable.
Yeah, that's where I graduated, and I played the national anthem on electric guitar like Jimi Hendrix
I
with
thought
my
you were going to
teeth.
say air guitar.
Yeah, you did.
So you were the coolest guy at the school.
Dude, hell yeah.
So I was at the at the Performing Arts Center, and a lot of what we did was on the stage. So you'd be running ropes and things and getting slivers in your hands that would later emerge. But then the other cool part, once you got that down, was you could do things like run the audio, run the lights, run the spotlight.
So fun.
And the spotlight, so the audio and the lights are all run. If you're in the back of an auditorium and you look, if you're sitting in an auditorium and you look backwards, oftentimes the lights and the sound stuff is all behind
That's a
you,
big
and you can see
control
those
panel.
windows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those windows kind of open up to the area where the techs work, balancing out the audio and the lights. And then you've got, and this is really cool, at the PAC, there's this stretch. It's a catwalk that is suspended over the audience. It's all painted flat black, And to get
Extra
up to this
spooky.
area, you have to go up a bunch of stairs, and then you go, down these side corridors, and everything's painted flat black because you don't want it to show. Sure. And
no.
Fuck safety.
yeah, full
Well,
safety.
you have in theater work, you have like glow tape
Yeah.
corners and
Okay.
like steps and things. So like they'll be a little bit illuminated when safety is involved,
Yeah,
but
not
Wow.
not
I
much.
Now I gotta say, the only safety thing I remember is a scary picture of a clown that they would put on all the corners so you wouldn't hit your head.
Safety first.
That's all I remember there.
Oh my
but I
gosh.
mean, this was like how many years
This
ago?
was in the 90s.
Yeah, 25 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
25,
So, yeah,
35.
safety
Yeah,
didn't
this is
matter
about
as
25
much.
years ago.
Yeah.
but I'm saying these days,
Yeah,
they
exactly.
do put glow tape spike marks
I've never
on things.
And
never been
eventually, there's
backstage
enough like
anywhere.
blood stains on the corners of every wall. They had to put the tape up.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know.
But then it wouldn't stick because the blood is like dealt with, mess with this adhesive.
Coagulating.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So, there were a lot of different community groups that would come in and use the PA, use the facility. And so we were getting the lights and the sound ready for a show that was happening the next day. And it just happened to be Dave, the guy who was, the old dude who ran everything, and me, and he was a really cool dude. So there was nothing, strange there. But I was I just say that, I guess, because I've had so many creepy experiences with men. I feel like I need to say that he was a good one.
Well, yeah,
But-
Well,
you're-
we're
you're-
men.
Men.
That's all I need to say.
That's- men.
I was
men.
gonna say you've lived enough life to just go.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Deal with shitty men.
So I was in the back working on the lights, and on either side of the catwalk was a gate, and the catwalk is made of metal. The gates are made of metal, and the gate had an actual doorknob that you would open and close. It was like just a very small gate,
Perfect for a quiet theater.
perfect for a quiet theater.
Clang.
Well, and you had to be really careful with it. So I was up there doing the lights, and I hear this boom, 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 like somebody running up the side. And then I hear the clang of the gate opening and closing. And then I hear this boom, 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 boom on the metal grate. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so Dave and I, everybody in the all the backhand, all those backhanded bitches, all this, we were all had,
Just line them up.
we were on, what the fuck? The
Headset.
Headset, thank you.
Yes.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, Dave, what are you doing up here? And he's like, I'm not up here.
No.
Or I'm not where you are. And
Dave's not here,
he said,
man.
I'm down on the stage. And I said, but I just heard the catwalk open and close. And he said, it wasn't me. And then I see him walk out on the stage way down below in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God. So I said, I'm just going to go ahead and come down now. And so I did. And I asked him, what the hell was that? Because it was creepy as fuck. The running, the opening gate, the slamming, and then the running down the catwalk. And he said that when they first opened it, because the building was probably less than a year old by the time I'd started working there, he said that he'd had the most unusual encounters with... so I guess this one I didn't really see the ghost. I heard the ghost. But he had unusual encounters with kids' voices, giggling, the sounds of little feet running around. It was a really creepy building. But that was...
And it was new?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's brand new and it's already haunted.
Oh, that's the beautiful thing. Haunted things, I mean, as we learned in Poltergeist,
Yeah,
can
that's
occur
true.
even if it's brand new,
Good point.
Yeah.
It's the land that is
It's
haunted.
the land, yeah, oftentimes. So that was one of the first ghosts I saw. The next ghost I saw after that was in a antique store in Aberdeen. Yeah, saw crazy. Well, she wasn't crazy. She was just a ghost woman.
She was just like chilling, being like, yo, what's up? Boo.
Saw another ghost in Oak Alley. Oak Alley is a plantation in Louisiana where they filmed the opening scene to Interview with a Vampire.
Oh,
And it's that big alley of oaks, believe it or not.
Sprawling. It's
Yeah.
a big,
That
it's
was
a big
kinda
estate thing.
But yeah, I
Paid for.
see dead people on a semi-regular basis. So
Oh, good.
it's,
I know that my roommate has a story of the pack where he was up in the booth, in the sound booth, sitting. So it was him and one of his coworkers, and they're both sitting, looking out onto at the stage, because there's a show happening, and they just see someone lean in between them.
Creepy.
And because there's and they don't even really think anything of it because people are coming in and out of the
Absolutely.
booth.
Sure, you're not really paying attention.
Yeah, and so they see someone lean and then lean back, and they look around to see who it was, and they were the only people in the booth, and the door hadn't opened.
well,
and I'm just
you
like,
will have to tell him my
fuck
story.
that.
Yeah. So I quit that job actually, and then I
Because of the
started
ghosts?
Yeah, I was.
Really?
It freaked me the fuck out.
I
You
get-
guys.
okay, I get it, yeah.
It was very unsettling. I was 14.
Was it the only one you saw, or the only one at the pack that you experienced?
Yeah, it was the first
And last.
and last because
You're
I
like-
was like, oh hell no.
One was
Man,
enough.
You're like,
weren't
"Figgity
radio,
fuck this."
weren't radio headsets when you're like 14 the coolest fucking shit?
I felt like a badass. I felt like at
Yeah.
Old Navy how they have. I don't know if they still have them, but I remember they had them in the 90s.
They still have Old Navies. Yeah.
But like the headsets at Old Navy where you'd be in the fitting room and you'd be like, can
Yeah,
I
they have
get
a
these
little
in like
headset
a
with them
10?
like coming down. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
or like Britney Spears. I felt very much like Britney Spears, but this was
yes.
pre Britney Spears. I didn't even think she was born yet.
When I
brother-
started, yeah.
My brother worked at American Eagle when he was in high school, and yeah, he said they gave me one of those fucking earpieces. I never put it in.
When I,
Like you're the
I just
geeky
walked
Secret
around
Service.
and dipped in the dressing room.
well, if you would really like to listen to more of this,
And why wouldn't you?
or pretend that you do, you can find So What'd You Learn Podcast Network on any platform. And I mean any platform. It's on every single one. And you can email us if you'd like to send us your stories at sowddylearn@gmail.com. And we also have an Instagram and Twitter where it's a mystery to me.
We post images of the podcast.
You'll never know.
It's the actual sound waves. It's the coolest.
I have been
very
half
meta.
tempted to post
meta.
a little piece I'm working on called Alex Laughs for 30 minutes straight. I'm not done yet, but I might post snippets
It's
of
gonna
it.
be your magnus opus.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
We're getting there.
I'm gonna hate that so much.
Make it your ringtone.
Oh god, that would be.
Oh my God.
That's the most self-serving thing I've ever heard.
But also joy bringing, because let's be honest,
You have a wonderful laugh.
you have a wonderful
thank you.
laugh.
Also, the
brightens.
wavelengths are hilarious.
See him on Instagram.
Yeah, leave us a review on iTunes. If you have thoughts, share them, please. If you say something shitty and give us a 1-star review, we are not obligated to take your opinion under advisement. So if you say something shitty, but you give us 5 stars, we'll be like, let's write that down.
Which, speaking of which, I forgot, Dallas, we have,
Yeah.
can you bring up, we do have a review on
Oh, yeah.
iTunes that
Yay.
we have to read on air.
Oh, okay. Yes, yeah.
You can go.
All it says is pretty funny and enjoyable.
Hell yeah. So thank you for the review. Who's it by?
And how many stars did they give us?
They gave us 5, and it was
nice.
Abigail Biber.
Cool. Thank you, Abigail.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Abigail.
No
Oh,
idea
that's
who
awesome.
Abigail is, but I'm sure she's a wonderful lady.
If she's a listener of ours, she's a wonderful person. And you too can be a wonderful person
Well,
by listening to this pod.
Congratulations, Abigail. You're the first person to write a comment.
Hell
yeah.
yeah.
And if you too want your comment and review read on air, leave it on iTunes. Oh,
Throw in the guitars.
I think
Good night,
that'll do it for us.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. We love you.
The So What Did You Learn podcast is brought to you by the So What Did You Learn Network. Theme written and recorded by Jacob Rose. Our logo was designed by Stevie Van Bronckhorst. Further work of hers can be found at stevievanb.com.